So I'm looking at the vote count, running down the list. Thank you to the New York Times, UNR, for this on this day and time. Right now, you're listening to Senator Mitch McConnell. You want me to go and put it on the screen here? Who's big speeches after the fact. I don't think there's right now. There's one winner today, and it's Donald Trump. But currently, these folks are about to kind of catch some hell for a while. As the number set 12, 10 short to convict today. We'll let Mr. McConnell speak for a little bit. Just to put in this reference, Mitch McConnell did vote to acquit. So I'm going to let you kind of take it from there. Just to put this in perspective, so the former President Donald Trump has been acquitted on the second impeachment just this afternoon, breaking across the wires around the world. Now, the question is, he officially is the first president in the modern era to not be impeached twice, be acquitted twice, but this impeachment's unique. It's the most bipartisan impeachment in American history. It's also the highest vote count of any impeachment in American history. He has officially come the closest to impeachment. So, what does this mean? I'm going to let you all watch this for a second and let Leader McConnell give his remarks.
Anyone who deprives his own behavior is accused of insulting millions of voters. That's an absurd deflection. 74 million Americans did not invade the Capitol. Hundreds of rioters did. 74 million Americans did not engineer the campaign of disinformation and rage that provoked it. One person did. Just one. I've made my view of this episode very plain. But our system of government gave the Senate a specific task. The Constitution gives us a particular role. This body is not invited to act as the nation's overarching moral tribunal. We're not free to work.
This is going to end up likely leading to something.
Some kind of punishment. Justice Joseph Story, our nation's first great constitutional scholar. As he explained nearly 200 years ago, the process of impeachment and conviction is a narrow tool for a narrow purpose. Story explained this limited tool exists to, quote, secure the state against gross official misdemeanors, end quote. That is, to protect the country from government office. If President Trump were still in office, I would have carefully considered whether the House managers proved their specific charge. By the strict criminal standard, the President's speech probably was not invited. However, in the context of impeachment, the Senate might have decided this was acceptable shorthand for the reckless actions superseded the right. But in this case, the question is moot because former President Trump is constitutionally not eligible for conviction. Now, this is a close question, no doubt. Donald Trump was the president when the House voted, though not when the House chose to deliver the papers. Brilliant scholars argue both sides of this jurisdictional question. The text is legitimately ambiguous. I respect my colleagues who reached either conclusion. But after intense reflection, I believe the best constitutional reading shows that Article 2, Section 4 exhausts the set of persons who can legitimately be impeached, tried, or convicted. It's the President, it's the Vice President, and civil officers. We have no power to convict and disqualify a former office holder who is now a private citizen. Here is Article 2, Section 4. Quote, the President, the Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, robbery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors, end quote. Now, everyone basically agrees that the second half of that sentence exhausts the legitimate grounds for conviction. The debates around the Constitution's framing make that abundantly clear. Congress cannot convict for reasons besides those. It therefore follows that the list of persons in that same sentence is also exhausted. There's no reason why one list would be exhausted, but the other would not. Article 2, Section 4 must limit both why impeachment and conviction can occur, and to whom. And to whom. If this provision does not limit impeachment and conviction powers, then it has no limits at all. The House has sole power of impeachment, and the Senate sole power to try all impeachments, would create an unlimited circular logic empowering Congress to ban any private citizen from federal office. Now, that's an incredible claim. But it's the argument of the House managers seem to be making. One manager said the House and Senate have, quote, absolute, unqualified jurisdictional power, end quote. Well, I was very honest, because there is no limiting principle in the constitutional text that would empower the Senate to convict former officers that would not also let them convict and disqualify any private citizen. An absurd end result to which no one is surprised. Article 2, Section 4 must have force. It tells us the President, the Vice President, and civil officers may be impeached and convicted. Donald Trump's no longer the President. Likewise, the provision states that officers subject to impeachment and conviction shall be removed from office if convicted. Shall be removed from office if convicted. As Justice Story explained, the Senate, upon conviction, is bound in all cases to enter a judgment of removal from office. Removal is mandatory upon conviction. Clearly, he explained that mandatory sentence cannot be...
I think he's trying to put the predicate. So there's an argument to be said here right now today pending this action today, there could be an act because of the action involved. This is the critical number we all need to keep this in mind. A majority was reached, or a majority decision was reached today that the president, or the former president of the United States, may have acted in an act of insurrection. By proxy of this decision, of that number, the president theoretically committed an act of insurrection. And eligibility under the 13th and 14th Amendment of the Constitution could put it at subject, at disqualification from future office or federal position if the resolution was introduced in the House and sent over to the Senate. Consider that.
Are a specific intra-governmental safety valve. It is not the criminal justice system where individual accountability is the paramount goal. Indeed, Justice Story specifically reminded that while former officials were not eligible for impeachment or conviction, they were, and this is extremely important, still liable to be tried and punished in the ordinary tribunals of justice. Put another way, in the language of today, President Trump is still liable for everything he did while he was in office. As an ordinary citizen, unless the statute of limitations is run, still liable for everything he did while he was in office. Didn't get away with anything. Yeah. Yeah. We have a criminal justice system in this country. We have civil litigation. And former presidents are not immune from being accountable by either one. I believe the Senate was right not to grab power the Constitution doesn't give us.
Very good, sir. I'm really confident.
Entertain some light-speed sham process to try to outrun the law of jurisdiction. It took both sides more than a week just to produce their pre-trial briefs. Speaker Pelosi's own scheduling decisions conceded what President Biden publicly confirmed. A Senate verdict before Inauguration Day was never possible. Now, Mr. President, this has been a dispiriting time. But the Senate has done our duty.
So let the record show on Saturday, February 13th, 2021, this country rendered this verdict. It's not unlikely, and it's not without reason, that the president will likely be facing charges in a number of counties. Former President Donald Trump could potentially be facing legal charges in a lot of localities in the coming days. And here's why I say that. The evidence entered into record today, Thursday, Friday, Thursday, and in previous days is public record now. Keep this in mind. It's absolutely relevant to anything going forward. It's public record as an element and technically could be used as part of future charging, and is public record. Jamie Raskin and the impeachment team may have theoretically done something for future prosecution, save them time and money. It's not without mistake that they are making elements and arguments not of law, but of intent. We'll see.
The Senator from Maryland. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senior Senator from Maryland.
Now be remarks by individual senators, but let's talk about what we just witnessed. The old campaigner, the inside player, Mitch McConnell, the man who delayed the trial till after Trump's departure, the man who minutes earlier voted to acquit, appeared to be throwing the first fistfuls of dirt on the political grave of Donald Trump. His back still arched under the 4 years, reminding the audience Trump is still liable for everything he did, even as a private citizen. Trump didn't get away with anything yet. Accusing Trump of wild falsehoods, calling his behavior disgraceful, and calling the former president practically and morally responsible for provoking the violence of the day, sounding at times more like a House manager than the Republican leader of the Senate. Nicole, while we have our friends Claire McCaskill, Dan Goldman, and Andrew Weissman standing by, at long last, I would love to hear you finish your thoughts.
Well, listen, Mitch McConnell, it is accurate, you read off. He also said this, that impeachment was, quote, never meant to be a final forum of American justice, and that Trump is still liable to be prosecuted for everything he did. And he said he didn't get away with anything yet, seemingly calling for the Maryland Justice Department to look at criminal federal prosecutions of Donald J. Trump, which would be something. I want to say this, though, about Mitch McConnell. If he had to zip himself in this leaving back to the end of time to talk about something, it would be judges and judicial stuff. And he zipped himself in there with two people who have a complete opposite read on the Constitution than he did. Chuck Cooper, who was Ted Cruz's one-time lawyer, and Ted Olson, who said that he will not ever give a man, political donation-wise, to anyone who didn't vote to convict. He's also got the little sticky problem of 7 conservative Republican senators who saw the Constitution in a fundamentally different way than he did. So he's got a lot of problems with the substance, and he's got a whole lot of problems, but he clearly has a problem with his own conscience. That came clear in a pretty obvious way, isn't it?
Claire McCaskill, 7 of your former Senate colleagues, Burr, Cassidy, Collins, Murkowski, Romney, Sass, Toomey, on the Republican side, voted to come over. Yes, it was the most bipartisan vote at the conclusion of an impeachment case, but I'm so curious to hear you out on what we've just witnessed.
Well, if somebody would have said, we're going to have a bingo card and put on it that Mitch McConnell will do a lock him up speech at the close of the proceedings, I probably would not have guessed that. It is particularly alarming that he gave this speech, since he is the one responsible for the trial not occurring earlier. Now, he would probably argue there wasn't time to do the trial because they tried to bring the article of impeachment to the Senate on the 15th of January. They were turned away by Mitch McConnell and said they could not until they reconvened. The question is, would they have had time between the 15th and the inaugural? I don't know. But the point is, he created the fig leaf. Now, I'm cynical about Mitch McConnell, and I can be cynical about Mitch McConnell since he raised literally hundreds of millions of dollars to take me out of my job. And money matters to Mitch McConnell in terms of campaign fundraising and re-establishing a majority in the Senate. He knows that a lot of the people who write checks with big commas in them, 5-figure, 6-figure checks, sometimes 7-figure checks.
He has a point.
That those people wanted him to say what he just said.
Sorry,
And so, you know,
she has a point.
Am I glad he says lock him up? Yes. But do I also think he was doing this?
There is a degree of theater involved in this, isn't
in
there?
terms of keeping the spigot on for big donations from corporate America? Yeah, I think
If there's any mistake why Mitch McConnell takes over the Senate next cycle, and Kevin McCarthy doesn't, let's just talk real straight politics about this. Mitch McConnell is a gamesman. He is probably one of the best chess players next to Harry Reid. The Republican Party faces a fundamental reality on the Senate side. Now, look at this straight away. They have to ditch Trump. Nothing personal. It's just business. And they had to do it in a way that was politically satisfying to corporate America and also not castigating the base. Mr. McConnell today effectively did it without losing the caucus, without convicting Donald Trump. He wins. The Chamber of Commerce, Big Pharma, K Street could not send $1 to the Republican Senatorial Committee, to John Thune, to John Cornyn and company, John Barack's and company, if any of this had gone down any other way today.
It was somewhat inconsistent, though, because he was saying that he didn't.
The unfortunate political reality is that Mitch McConnell is this close to retaining and recapturing the United States Senate. Probably with a majority of 5-6. Taking out Georgia, for example, is not that hard. It's just a nudge. Reinvigorating the party with acolytes that are kind of in his line that will vote the way they'll be corporate friendly. Vote to get Supreme Court, vote to get conservative Supreme Court judges to ensure strong conservative judges be in line that won't cause trouble, that won't make the headlines for bad reasons, who will keep the Senate majority in line. And essentially, the majority in power. Today, he just did a good job of it. This was literally the biggest barrier to that method. Because if Mitch McConnell had even hinted at convicting Donald Trump today, or had let this gone out of control, McConnell would have lost the base and therefore would have lost the chance of winning in 22, probably would have retired. Likely in 22. Besides, I don't know who in Kentucky would likely take the reins over. He is the biggest boss in town. Congressman Yarmouth is likely the next, who's a Democrat, by the way, would have been the most likely contender if there was a special election in 22 to take the seat as well. Rand Paul kind of has a power base. Andy Beshear is kind of coming up from the rear. And likely is kind of his son-in-law, not his son-in-law. The Attorney General is kind of likely a long-term prospect to fill the seat long-term. Otherwise, kind of law be. No, I'm not very well versed in Kentucky politics, but this is what I kind of know. Otherwise, there's not a lot of people that are ready to take his seat. We kind of knew that element of it. So, had a Trump conviction occurred today, he would have had to go. And John Thune would have ended up becoming minority leader. Or John Cornyn. So, here we are. Business goes on, believe it or not. The Republican caucus conference, Republican Senate conference, gets to live on another day. And the light and all the money that Kevin McCarthy is about to lose out on is now his. Because where are they going to give it to? They're sure hell not going to give likely the Republican congressional candidates, at least not this cycle, unless Kevin McCarthy goes. Or Kevin McCarthy atones for like this. This is clear because corporate America doesn't even want to touch the conference, from my understanding right now, because of the QAnon stuff, because of the insurrection stories, because there's a toxic taint that corporate America sees with the Republican conference, and they don't want that touching them and impacting their members and lobbies. So, but I'll let these guys continue. I've got to do one thing real quick.
And the third thing, and this is the question I have for Claire, and I am an increasing cynic like she is. If there were 7 Republicans who obviously did go out, if you so chose, for conviction, it's an accessory after fact case against the former president. You would not have to worry about issues like, is this insightful speech or not under the Brandenburg test? It's, hey, there's irrefutable proof that he knew this was going on and he didn't do anything to stop it. I'm not saying that's true. I'm saying that is an example of something Senator McConnell is talking about, that it's just not over yet.
Kimberly, one of the tactics that the defense really relied on throughout this trial was sort of spreading the blame around, saying essentially, well, if you're going to call President Trump and hold him responsible for saying, let's fight, let's take this fight to the people, then you also got to hold Democrats like Maxine Waters and Cory Booker and Elizabeth Warren. Even Kamala Harris appeared in one of the videos. Do you think that is what helped them get to the victory they got to this afternoon?
You know, I don't. I mean, I think Mitch McConnell just sort of tried to have it both ways. On the one hand, he made a technical argument admitting it was ambiguous under the law as to whether it was constitutional to hold the trial. Of course, he was the reason the trial didn't start prior to the inauguration because he was in charge. But at the same time said that Donald Trump acted recklessly, that he abdicated his constitutional responsibility, and as Saul said, basically offered him up as a potential criminal defendant moving forward, which is quite serious. I think, you know, as a constitutional law professor, I think we all have to take a deep breath and stand back and look at the Constitution itself. There's a big difference between a criminal trial and what we just saw what impeachment is, which is really deciding, we the people, where's the line of conduct that we're okay with for any president. It's basically defining a job description for the presidency, and this definitely, in that regard, leaves us all open to something like this happening again, so long as it's towards the end of a term, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican. And of course, as we heard in the trial, we've seen rioting, you know, across the political spectrum, and I don't like that picture for America either way. And it seems like that picture has been given the green light, at least from the standpoint of the U.S. Congress. They're punting it to other parts of the executive branch, that is the U.S. attorney or local district attorneys at the state and municipal level.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, Kimberly. So let me pick up there and ask you, because we did see McConnell citing Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution why he voted to acquit. But is it possible that had it not been incitement for insurrection and something more along the lines of dereliction of duty, it might have had a different outcome?
No, I don't think it would have. If I could respond to one point that Kimberly made, and we're old friends. That's why I call her by her first name. And that's that. I don't think. I think that's a bum rap on McConnell delaying, because from what I understood at the time, first of all, they didn't send the article of impeachment over right away. But also, my understanding was the Senate was in recess at that point, and he would have needed the unanimous consent of his Republican senators. He couldn't even get anything close to unanimous consent when he tried to get them to drop their objections to certification. So I'm not certain about that, but I think I recall reading that. It would have been awfully late to put on a trial, an actual trial before Inauguration Day. That's number one. But number two, also kind of in some opposition to what Kimberly is saying, and that is, yes, you could look at it as a bad example that was set by acquitting President Trump, but I think it's important to put on your case. I think the House managers put on a very powerful case against him, even if you believe technically that you cannot convict a president once he leaves office. That a lot of people watched that presentation. It was powerful. It's going to affect, I believe, President Trump's reputation and his popularity, even among some people in his base. I think it's important. It was important that they go through with the process.
All right, Kimberly, I asked you a moment ago about the defense legal strategy. Now I want to flip sides and ask you about House managers. One of the things they did throughout the course of this trial was really broaden the scope of their argument. So they started small and tight. They said, we're focusing on incitement of violence on January 6th. We're looking at this singular incident. But then over the course of this week, what they did was expand the scope. They kept going backwards. They started with President Trump's refusal to concede the presidential election back in November, then the court cases that he filed in state after state after state over the coming weeks, then incitement to violence that they claim happened on January 6th. Was that the right thing to do for the Democrats?
Well, I saw it a little differently in that I think the defense argument was, under the First Amendment, that you take a snapshot of January 6th and the words that came out. I think what the Democrats are trying to do is say, listen, incitement requires a wider lens. That over a period of weeks...
And just to let you know, so there's audio that's in the background.
To the Capitol on January 6th, and we saw testimony from people in the crowd. We know, as Saul mentioned, there are people that are indicted. The indictments indicate belief from his followers that they were doing the patriotic thing to come to the U.S. Capitol and serve the Constitution in their minds because they were answering to their president. And I think the defense argument was, and it's very clear in the briefs as well, those people are on their own. We're leaving them twisting in the wind.
So I'm going to do this right now.
You know, off script. Trump had nothing to do with that, and it doesn't. I think
So right now it's just commentary from Fox, and
leadership does matter.
I did want to try to the
that
comments.
actually leaders do have to be held accountable, maybe to even a higher standard than people that are following leaders. So I agree with Saul that I'm not so sure, you know, reframing the charge would have made a difference. I think they chose this charge to deflect the argument that it's not per se not a high crime and misdemeanor. No one argued that incitement of an insurrection doesn't qualify as a high crime and misdemeanor, which we saw the last round. But I would have liked to see some witnesses, frankly. I mean, this wasn't a traditional trial. It wasn't a real trial. And I think Americans deserve to see what from first-hand accounts, not only what it was like, but the police officers. I mean, the police officers were also abandoned.
Charge against Trump. Guess what? All of those dollars, they come rolling back in, baby. All of that narrative gets replayed, but it doesn't splash up on them. It splashes up on from the Biden administration going into the 22 cycle. This was a deft political move at the end by McConnell. There was very little sincerity there about how much he was upset about what the president did, because he showed that in his vote. And that's the piece here that I think everybody needs to appreciate with what you witnessed from McConnell. That wasn't a play for the moment just now. That was a play for what they're going to be able to do going into the 22 cycle to get back to Senate and hopefully the House.
I'm going to bring in our colleague, Ari Melber. Ari, just talking about what I think by the end was a craven attempt at some cover, not political cover, because he's got, he carried out Trump's will there, but some sort of moral cover or cover with the donor base. But how plausible is it that there will be a federal investigation into Donald Trump?
Well, there may be ongoing investigations, including Georgia. I don't think what Mitch McConnell said can or should impact that in any way. So I agree with those experts today who said it was a dodge. 3 big points here, one including McConnell. I think Mitch McConnell rhetorically went full Raskin. I mean, he made the case and said Trump did it, but then claimed we couldn't try him back when I prevented it. That was the only time we should do it. I mean, Mitch McConnell's position, the reason why it doesn't sound like it makes any sense is his claim is Trump did it, but the only time to try him for the Senate was when I, Mitch McConnell, prevented it. That's number one. Number two, I do want to note something that while across the country this is an historic day and people may look and take issue with the results, this is also the most bipartisan coalition to convict a president ever in American history, more than the last Trump impeachment, more than Clinton. And that tells you something, that the managers did move those Republicans.
I thought I heard his voice.
Sorry, Ari, keep going. We've got an open mic there.
Oh, sure.
Right there. Keep going, Ari.
I thought maybe you were jumping in. I didn't know which voice it was. So just on that, that's important because more members of the president's own party voted to convict him of a high crime than any other impeached president and in the last Trump impeachment.
It's so important.
People, it may not be enough, Nicole, but that is a thing. And the third point I just want to make briefly is, from a view of trial advocacy, the Democrats did blow it on the witnesses today. Because either witnesses are important to bring forward, in which case do it, or if they are not because you say, I've got no overwhelming case without them, then you don't hold a vote to bring them in and then back down. Now, that may have been a blip. It may look like a footnote to some, but I do think they did blow that on a key final closing day, whether it would move votes or not. But again, one of the biggest takeaways, Nicole, is that in regards to the substantive case, the Democrats moved more members of the president's own party than any other time in American history.
Let me just button one of the things that you said there, Ari. I heard from a source close to the impeachment managers that all the witnesses went cold, even the one who provided the evidence that they entered into the record. But I want to say something about your second point, about bipartisan impeachment. This is Richard Burr, and this was the Republican vote that all the color that we're getting from the room really shook this room to its core. This is what Richard Burr said. He said the president promoted unfounded conspiracy theories to cast doubt on the integrity of a free and fair election because he did not like the results. As Congress met to certify the election results, the president directed his supporters to go to the Capitol to destroy disrupt the lawful proceedings required by the Constitution. When the crowd became violent, the president used his office to first inflame the situation instead of calling for an end to the assault. This was Liz Cheney's complaint. This was her charge behind her vote to impeach. This was for the 7 Republicans who voted to convict, the conduct that is not in dispute. And I think you're right in that there is no partisan divide in the acceptance of the facts. The facts are that he incited the riot. The facts are that he stirred it up. The facts are that he cheered it on while the insurrection was underway. And the indisputable fact is that he was indifferent to the life or death of his own vice president. No one disputed any of those facts.
Yes, Nicole. He did it, according to Mitch McConnell, and according to those Republican votes that are more than any other time in history.
Yeah.
Thank you. I feel good.
What do you think, when you look back on the events of today, we saw a lot of unexpected
conversation.
transpired.
Let's close
in the morning when the senators vote to call witnesses and then decided
This
to
is defense counsel for former President Donald Trump on cue right now.
What surprised you the most?
He is now giving an interview with Fox.
What surprised me, what had happened was the day before we demolished their case, and they were like
Michael Vanderveen from Philadelphia.
And so this morning, their last gaps were swinging out at us trying to save their case, and it didn't work. So we were kind of expecting them pulling something. There was a stipulation the night before. They pulled it out from under the rug at about 10 minutes before we walked into the Senate chamber this morning. We're trial lawyers. We're used to taking anything that comes our way, and we shift, pivot, adjust, and move forward, and that's exactly what we did.
Michael, I want to ask you, we've read the statement from former President Trump on our air, but have you talked to your client, and what was his initial reaction to you?
I don't discuss any attorney-client communications in any way.
Well, would it be fair to say that the president is reacting positively to what he saw and what has transpired today?
I would assume that is what he's doing. He had a good day in court today. He was vindicated. He was found not guilty. The political witch hunt that they had, that the Democrats had thrown at him, was defeated. So he should feel quite pleased.
Michael, one of the things that you and your colleagues referenced over and over again during the course of this week was that there were really 4 core reasons for senators to acquit President Trump. When you look back on how things have unfolded, which of those arguments do you think senators relied on the most? Was it this idea of the unconstitutionality of the trial? Was it falling back on the president's own First Amendment rights? What do you think made the big difference?
That's a really good question because it was very interesting. We had to go with all 4 grounds of acquittal because different senators had different interests. And, for example, some senators' due process was absolutely important to them. Other senators, just the fact that they were unable in any way to put on a case and prove the merits of their case held the day. I do think there were a large number that still thought there was no jurisdiction here, and they were right when they thought that way. And of course, the Senate Rule 23, it's in black and white. They live by these rules, so certainly that was something they could hang their hat on, though, too. To get to 2/3, to beat the 2/3 and get the win in this, we had to really be strategic about what senators were going to be listening to what arguments.
Michael, I think that the Senate certainly reacted when we were in that roller coaster over the witnesses. You were making the argument that you could have 100 or more witnesses. And at one moment, the Senate laughed at you. They seemed to give you a hard time. I want to ask you what your impressions were as a Philadelphia lawyer that came down here to argue this case. What was it like for you? What is your reaction to the way you were treated? And then a follow-up on that, how have you been treated as a result of defending the president? There are reports your house was graffitied.
My home was attacked. I'd rather not go into that. To answer your question, my entire family, my business, my law firm are under siege right now. I don't really want to go into that. What I'd really like to do is talk about the merits of the case. They didn't have a case, and they shouldn't have brought this impeachment from the beginning. It really does stem from political hatred, and I really wish that this country would come into the middle. It's so polarized on the left and on the right, and what this nation and what these politicians need to do is they need to come into the middle. What happened in the chamber this morning, I could have very much misunderstood their laughter. Some of the senators came up and said, no, Mike, we laughed because that's exactly how, you're a lawyer. That's what happens. You want a witness, you drop a subpoena. You want to get information, you take a deposition. And when you said that you're going to do it up in Philadelphia, well, of course you are, because that's the way it should be done. I think most of them were probably laughing at just reality setting in that this is the way it would be done. I'm in there, I'm boxing, and I don't like laughter so much, so I may have taken it the wrong way. I had a team of lawyers and legal professionals, the staff in my firm back up in Philadelphia, the folks that came down here with me, super people, hearts of gold. None of us are political really in that way. And we had a constitutional duty to defend this case, to defend this client. And we did this case like absolutely every other case my firm handles. We threw everything at it, every resource we had, we gave it to this case. We put this defense together in 8 days. And I'm proud of my team. I'm pleased with my team, prides us in. I'm pleased with my team and our team. It was very difficult down here because it's so partisan, it's so political. The media was very unkind to us. I can't tell you how many names I was called in how many different papers or media outlets, and I'm just a working guy and trying to do the best we can every day at the job that we're blessed to be able to do.
Michael, thanks for joining us and giving us a chance to talk to you. We always keep it fair and balanced here at Fox News. I want to ask you for your reaction to one of the only, as far as I could tell, watching this trial every hour, every day this week, new pieces of information we got, which came from House managers. They laid out, I think this came on Wednesday.
It's interesting you
they
say
laid out.
It's interesting you say information because it was probably second and third hand information. What they needed to come into the Senate chamber with was evidence, proof, facts, and they were devoid of all of that.
They did lay out the case on Wednesday that when it comes to the events of January 6th, the pro-Trump rally that occurred was originally scheduled for January 23rd. They laid out evidence that it was actually the Trump team, it was the campaign working with the White House that decided to move it back to January 6th, which is the day that we saw these unfortunate events, the rampage on the Capitol. What's your response to that piece of evidence?
They didn't lay out any competent evidence to show that at all. The evidence showed that this was a premeditated, pre-planned attack on the Capitol by extremists on both the left and the right. And I can't say enough. Myself as a citizen, all of the American people, we want the middle. We want people to come together and start solving the problems of this nation. That's what has to happen. And so I think, and I'm hopeful that winning this impeachment trial today is going to help folks do that.
Well, congratulations, Michael Van Der Ring, the counsel to the former president. Let's go now to the House managers at the press stakeout.
Members of the House, and I want to thank the terrific members of the House impeachment manager team. Trump stormed our house with the mob he incited, and we defended our house. And he violated our Constitution, and we defended the Constitution. And they tried to trash our democracy, and we revived it, and we protected it. This was the most bipartisan presidential impeachment in the history of the United States. And we know that impeachment, for reasons that we could explore at some other time, often becomes partisan. But this was the most bipartisan presidential impeachment event in the history of the country. It was also the largest Senate vote for a presidential impeachment, 57 to 43. And of course, the vote to impeach was 232 to 197 in the House. So we have a clear and convincing majority of members of Congress that the president actually incited violent insurrection against the Union and against the Congress. Senator Mitch McConnell just went to the floor essentially to say that we made our case on the facts, that he believed that Donald Trump was practically and morally responsible.
I'm going to go ahead.
Inciting the events of January 6th. He described it as a disgraceful dereliction of duty, the desertion of his office, and he made a series of statements that we didn't even make, saying that this was not over yet by a long shot, essentially, and that there was the path of criminal prosecution for the former president, the disgraced and now twice impeached former president. So the bottom line is that we convinced a big majority in the Senate of our case. I'm very proud of the exceptional hard work of the managers who worked through the night, many nights over several weeks, to make this case to the Senate and to the Union. As to, I just want to say one word about the whole thing about witnesses. We were able to get treated as live under oath testimony, the statement of our colleague, Congresswoman Jamie Herrera Butler. We were able to get a stipulation to that.